Thanks for joining me on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you don't know me, I'm Christian Harris, your host and founder of Slip Safety Services. My guest today is Louise Hosking, who this year is the President of IOSH. Great to have Louise on to talk about what she's been doing, all the ambassadorial work that she's been keeping incredibly busy with. If there's anyone that's doing more content at the moment than me in the world of safety, it must be Louise. Good conversation delving into Louise's big themes that she's working on in her presidential year. So what areas is she focusing on? Thinking about Catch the Wave, which is a campaign that she is spearheading from IOSH as well, and talking a lot about the future and how we're at this moment in time where there's never been a better time actually to be a safety and risk professional in many ways. We've got this opportunity to really shape the future and influence what's going to happen, but we need to capitalize on that. We need to do it and we need to act upon it. And so we talk a lot about that as well. I'm sure you'll get a lot out of this one. I really enjoyed talking to Louise. So with that, let's join the conversation. Cheers.
Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with Christian Harris. We believe that proactive safety and risk management powers business performance. Each week we explore this theme, sharing guests, stories, insights, trends, hints and tips. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, and video versions are available on YouTube. But for now, let's join the conversation with Christian.
Hi Louise, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Christian, it's great to be here.
For those of you watching this on YouTube, you'll notice that Louise and I have managed to coordinate outfits somehow.
We did actually talk about what we were going to wear beforehand.
Oh, you're not supposed to spoil it. You're not supposed to spoil it. But it's an exceptional choice of top you've got there. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and yours equally looking very smart there.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. So thank you very much for sparing some time because well, I don't know. I mean, looking at your LinkedIn, you've not been very busy, have you, for the last few months?
Well, I do have an ambassadorial role, so yeah, it's all about raising the profile of what we do.
Yeah, and it's pretty full on. I think you seem to be doing, talks every day and podcasts and interviews and articles and branch meetings and pretty non-stop.
Yeah, I think something that people might not know about the role is that it's very much split into two as well. So there's the outward facing ambassadorial role, which is being the president and doing all of those things that you've said. So raising the profile of the profession, working alongside our tier one partners. So I've got a podcast that I'm doing this afternoon with the Commonwealth, which is really fantastic.
Oh wow.
So all of that outward facing stuff. And I personally feel that it's really important to be accessible. So yeah, anybody can message me on LinkedIn and I'll respond.
Yeah.
But the other part of the role that I have is as chair of council. And part of my commitments in terms of my presidential year was about raising the profile of council and working to enhance council's effectiveness from within as well. So council consists of elected members, and it is the membership's voice which has a direct route into the board of IOSH. So I'm very committed this year, and actually that's taking up a huge amount of my time that nobody sees.
Nobody sees it, yeah.
Is to structure council in such a way that the membership voice is being heard at the highest levels within the institution.
Yeah, which is important, right? Because it's a membership body, and it's there for the members.
Yeah, and this is all about good governance practice, and it ties in with the ambassadorial role as well, because of course which I'm sure we'll come on to talk about, is the Catch the Wave campaign. And we know over the last couple of years that businesses have opened their doors to us like never before. And organizational leaders, they want to talk to us, they want to have us in the boardroom, but there's no point if once we walk through that boardroom door, if we act like we do with each other. We've got to have a different vocabulary and a different language. And so by understanding good governance practice, we start to learn about how to communicate in a way that's gonna land, is going to be effective. And that's how we change the perception and transform the perception of what we do and how we do it.
I've said recently that there's never been a better time to be a safety or risk management professional, with everything that's going on in the world. And so how does it feel then to be, because arguably this is the most high profile, pivotal time that you could ever have chosen to be in this role. So how does it feel to be kind of, not the representative, but one of the foremost representatives of the profession at such an important time?
I mean, how does it feel? Gosh, I mean, it's just strange how fate works, I think. My good, people have said to me, you get the right president at the right time. And I think that if somebody had have said to me when I became a vice president that all of this would be happening and this is when you become president, this is what you would be walking into, I'm not sure. It's a bit like starting a business, Christian. You don't know how hard it's going to be until you're in the middle of it.
That's very true.
So yeah, I mean, how do I feel about it? We're still very much working hybrid, so a lot of what I'm doing is like this. And so sometimes you kind of, when you're sat behind a desk, you don't always see that kind of influence that you're having. But I think, starting to get out and about now and starting to meet members physically is when I am starting to experience that kind of impact and change that's upon the profession. And I think it's a bit like being a health and safety professional. If you actually stop and think about everything that you've got to do and everything that you're responsible for, you probably wouldn't move forward. So I mean, it's definitely pushing me outside my comfort zone. And when you've been in health and safety for as long as I have, you think, I've seen it, I've done it. And generally I'm quite adaptable. I've created a business from scratch. I'm naturally proactive. But this definitely has taken me outside of my comfort zone. And I have wobbles, Christian, without a shadow of a doubt. It's I stop and I think about the responsibility and what it is that I'm hoping to achieve. And I definitely do have wobbles, but I'm doing the best that I can.
And that's
one conversation at a time.
And that's all you can ever do. It's, as you say, just like running a business. The whole thing. For me, for example, is just incremental improvements or incremental steps forward. And I know that sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, or hopefully not 2 steps back, but maybe 1.5 steps back. But yeah, you've just got to try and sort of keep your eyes on the end game and the prize, and keep moving gradually towards that, and sort of navigate the choppy waters that are bound to come, I suppose.
Yeah, and it is about I've always had this kind of forward-looking perspective of what we do, and my themes for my presidential year are all around modern leadership styles. And so I'm kind of walking the talk in terms of the stuff that I'm doing in council, because I'm having to physically lead council. which is including me as 51 voting members, and we have an additional nominations committee as well. So so I'm walking, I'm having to walk the talk in terms of what I'm doing with that, and actually, talk about this outside the profession and say, it's time for industry to see that we are, we're not coming in with a clipboard to tell you how to run your businesses. We're there to support and serve and, make this a brand differentiator at a time when, we've got the Great Resignation and people want to be working within environments where their health, their well-being and their safety is respected as a core value. And we can help you to establish that as a core value within your business. So that's why the whole piece around what I'm doing with sustainability and the Catch the Wave campaign, for me, it's a game changer in terms of how our profession is seen. So yeah, I guess that's what's driving me to just, keep moving forward in respect to that.
Yeah. And it's very easy. Well, I say very easy. It's much easier to get up every morning and put your heart and soul into something when you're working towards a big goal like that and a valuable and a worthwhile goal. I think, it's having a purpose, isn't it? Which we all do at some level. If we're involved in safety, clearly we have a purpose around it, but having something even bigger than that, must be helpful to keep you putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, and I really like people. I'm a bit of a collabor. And one of the things that all of this has brought us is that we all just pick up the telephone to people on the other side of the world. And we've all got exactly the same goal and exactly the same objective. And but I think in the past I've seen us kind of fight with one another about who knows the I know more technical stuff than you do, and it's what I'm seeing is that's changing now, and we're coming around and we're building this hugely powerful community that's all moving forward in the same kind of way. And if I can contribute to that kind of lowering the temperature and saying, guys, we're all in this together. We've got, the world is a changing place. We've got so many complex things going on in the world. And one person rarely achieves change. It takes teams of people that are working together, and they can achieve extraordinary things. But once you put a global team into the mix, we can change the world. And I'm one of those people that thinks, we can do this, and I think if we can come together, we can reverse some of the statistics that we're all familiar with, particularly within, territories within the world that have perhaps fewer health and safety regulations, but where we have these massive corporates that are working in those territories. We all have a voice, and as a global team of people working together for one cause, what can get better than that, Christian?
Exactly, yeah. I was listening to an interview with a guy who has a business with about 100 staff, and he was sort of saying he does a lot of not involved in safety. He does a lot of webinars and articles and thought leadership and videos and all this stuff, and people sort of say, oh, how do you find the time, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, the point is that I'm spending my time doing that, but there's every day there's 100 people, there's 700 hours of work happening elsewhere because we've got the team pushing in the right direction. I suppose that's a good analogy for
Mm.
getting on the same boat
Yeah,
and rowing together. So
yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Do you want to just, in terms of your sort of focus then, your presidential themes, do you want to just give us a quick overview of what those are, and then perhaps we can sort of delve into those in a bit more detail?
Yeah, so there's a really nice little themes clip actually on the IOSH YouTube. So I think
Yes,
there's a
I'll do a
link
link to
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, which would be great. But it is all about people, sustainability, and putting heart into health and safety. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
overarching strategy, if you like, for my year. So right at the front of there is people.
Hmm.
So I think from a health and safety perspective, we can get quite tied up in process and the technicality of what we're
Yeah.
doing. And coming out of COVID, I'm just saying, people is at the heart of this.
Mm.
So put people first. Sustainability is tied in with the Catch the Wave campaign. So it's thinking about sustainability in its broadest sense, and, how social sustainability fits into that.
Hmm.
And then finally putting heart into health and safety. So and the putting heart into health and safety piece was, when I went into this, I wasn't quite sure how people were going to take it, because this is about feelings
Mm.
and care and touchy feely stuff that I think traditionally pre-pandemic, I'm not sure if I'd have got away with it. But
Yeah.
I think coming through, and in terms of where we are now, it's people have really taken to me talking about this.
Mm.
So it's all about modern leadership skills, how we go about our roles with, listening and empathy and care and support, rather than command, control,
Yeah.
rules. I'm not good with rules myself. I don't like being told what to do.
That's because you've got your own business.
So, but that's how I'm taking, going through my year,
Mm.
is by empowering people and creating teams that feel empowered.
Yeah.
That's not to say that people can just do whatever they like. They have to
No.
have quite a clear frame. But it's, and I'm talking a lot about psychological health and safety as well, and
Mhm.
how we build psychological safety within our organizations,
Yeah.
to create trust. And if we can create trust, we can create those teams that can go off and do the extraordinary things that they need them to do at the moment.
Mm. Mm.
I've always been a passionate inclusion campaigner, so that's part of creating that trust as well.
Yeah.
And we know that we don't have enough women in the industry, so
It's getting better, I think, isn't it?
yeah, so we've moved the dial in the last
Mm.
18 months in
Yeah.
IOSH, which has been amazing. So for as long as I've known, I think when I joined it, we were at 19% female members.
Yeah.
And the latest data that I was passed over for International Women's Day is we've gone up to 21.7. So
That's
we've
lower.
actually shifted the dial
Mm.
quite significantly. For me,
That's
that's
lower
quite
than
significant.
that's lower than I thought, though. But I'm surprised it was that still that's still far too low, obviously. But it is a
Yeah,
big improvement. Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Um,
And the other problem that we've got is that we've got disproportionately less women who are chartered and fellows.
yeah.
So
Are you seeing, out of interest, if you split that out by age, let's say, the younger generation, it's more, there's more equilibrium there.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've actually got I haven't got those stats up with me. I've got a feeling, and somebody might correct me here, that we may actually have more women in our future leaders
Yeah.
area, but we're losing women as they go
Yeah.
through into leadership roles.
Mm.
And ERM have actually done some really interesting surveys and research around this. And what we found was, if you look at female health and safety roles in leadership positions within our largest global organizations, it's something like 15%. But if you look at those organizations as a whole, it's nudging sort of, I think it was 27% of women. So what that means is that proportionately, we've got far fewer women in our sector in those leadership roles. And if you translate that into traditionally male working environments like mining, offshore, construction, we're not seeing things through a female lens. We're not seeing it through the lens of our workforce. And so it doesn't make any health and safety sense not to have more women in the sector. So I'm hoping that just me being me, you know, people will see that to be a health and safety professional, we need all types of people. And it's not just about that kind of authoritative, large personality that can achieve, you know, positive change within an organization. So I'm just hoping that me being me and being here as the 7th woman in 76 years, and we need a few more female presidents coming through, will be that example of change as well.
I can think of a few that I'm sure will be going on that pathway.
So I mean, equally, I mean, the pathway through is you know, being involved in volunteering in IOSH, coming through to council, and then that's a natural, you don't have to do it like that, but it's a natural pathway through. And certainly some of the changes that I'm making in council, I think it will create opportunities for different types of people to come through and come into the presidential team, so that we'll create some diversity there. And you know, we want to be a global organization. We are a global organization, and we've got to be representative of that too. So part of what I'm doing is creating those pathways and just giving people, saying, you know, you've got the confidence, you've got the ability, you've just kind of got to do what I did when I applied for vice president, just apply anyway.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think increasingly I'm of the view, and I mean, you know, you do this and I definitely do this, you just got to put yourself out there and stand for something, but bring in all those human factors and the empathy and the softer skills that you mentioned, because I think
power skills, Christian.
Power skills, I don't know about that.
Soft skills are not easy.
No.
So I like to refer to them as power skills.
Power skills, I like it, but I think you're spot on to focus on those things, because I mean, if I think about myself, and if somebody asks me to kind of sum up, you know, what I do, I always say it's about trying to make people feel safer. So I turn it into that soft piece, because I think actually that's the way to engage people and to get people on board, and to you know, to influence people. You've got to make them feel something, right? So I think, as you say, gone are the days of the clipboard and the tick box. That's not gonna you're not going to be an enabler if you're annoying people by doing that. You know, you 100%. Need to be meeting them where they are. And I think those soft skills, you know, need the power skills need to really be highlighted.
So and I think there's I think people are aware of this, but they don't really know how to that proactive piece, I think, is quite a challenge for a lot of health and safety professionals. So, you know, we're kind of conditioned to find problems and find faults, aren't we? And so it's trying to switch that around to be, and again, I'm going to use council as my example, is that we have had this in council for a long time, in that council is not this collective purely this collective body of people that says, well, I don't like that about IOSH, don't like this about IOSH. We actually need council to be much more proactive and creating the next trend, not thinking what is the next trend, which is kind of where we are at the moment, but it's creating the next trend and saying, actually, this is the direction that we want it to go in. So, you know, which comes back to I'm walking the talk in terms of my role as chair of council, to turn that around to be much more proactive. And it's not easy because for some people that doesn't come naturally.
No.
And you know, this is what, when we talk about leadership, this is what we talk about in terms of leadership. It's about having vision and forward looking and being proactive and creating that journey and direction. And it's not about telling people what to do.
No, it's influencing.
Yeah.
Influencing.
And that can be quite an uncomfortable place to be. It's much more comfortable to read something or see something or experience something and say why you think it's wrong.
Yeah.
And you can get kind of an instant hit out of that, can't you? Particularly if they go away and they fix that thing and you get a quick win. That's kind of an instant hit. But we need to look at health and safety beyond compliance, and we're not going to get necessarily the same instant hits that we used to get. We need to be looking forward and much more strategically and much more long term.
No different to, you know, your year as president, because you can't, the work you're doing now, yes, there will be some immediate benefits, but probably the real benefits are going to be lagging, and they're going to happen in the next 3 years or something like that, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I've been in this, you know, work in this field for long enough to know it's, you know, I think we all have to get used to the fact that, you know, we're all doing something now which may not have, you know, any impact in the next year. It might not have any impact within the time that you're working within your role. It may not have any impact within your lifetime. But actually you are making an impact. And that's where we need to support each other, I think, as a community, to sort of say, you know, we are making a difference. And you know, I see my year as being very much a transitional year of, you know, really saying, you know, we need to build these foundations, utilizing these modern leadership skills. Certainly council's gone through a big change whilst I've been chair of council, and you know, that will continue.
Yeah, I mean, I've said many times, I'm sure on the podcast as well, that I just think that, you know, health and safety professionals should be aspiring to be the CEOs of the businesses, because actually, if you think of the skills that you need to do that profession well, you've got to have a broad understanding. You've got to be able to influence. You've got to understand levers and leading and lagging indicators and how to effect change. And you've got to be able to communicate well. You've got to be able to sell, in inverted commas, to get investment, to get things done. You've got to know figures and numbers, you know. So that to me is something, you know, if you're thinking about, you know, where the profession should be aiming towards, you know, for me, I'd be saying we should be trying to encourage people to aspire to get to the very highest level in organizations as well. Because I think, you know, that's how we can take that extra step to just to be more of an enabler and to have more influence and to get more stuff done and to align you know, businesses with safety and health outcomes even more. So, you know, that to me is a good goal for us to have.
Yeah, and but I think we need to understand the steps towards that. And so for me, there's kind of I believe that we could do it. I mean, I love running my business. You know, I love the fact that I have to get involved with numbers and marketing and everything else. And we absolutely do have all of those skills, because we're also used to creating things with nothing a lot of the
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
But there is a step, I think, for people that are creating their own businesses, that's one thing, but taking on more senior leadership roles that are operational, my advice to people is definitely to understand governance.
Mm.
And businesses want us to help and support in this field as well. So one of the pieces that has come out of the pandemic is that we know that investors are looking at those organisations that have done well throughout all of this.
Yeah.
And tied in again, catch the wave, sustainability, those organisations that are focusing on their people and their health and adapting to what their people need are those organisations that are doing better.
Mm.
So the big investors are looking at this, and they also don't want to align themselves with organisations that are a reputational risk. That's becoming an even bigger issue as well. And so when we talk about environmental, social and governance, and talk about ESGs and so on, that really matters to business at the moment.
Mm.
So if we can align ourselves with that, and be useful, be forward looking, that's going to be the piece that actually gives us that kind of operational, enable us to kind of step across.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to be saying when I pitch for new council members in the summer.
Yeah.
It's really good experience to learn about governance and take that into your day job, definitely, to be able to speak the language of the boardroom, because we talk about the language of the boardroom and then we say, well, what is it? And that would be my advice for understanding how to influence organizations at the highest level.
Yeah. I did an episode recently with a sales expert, and we were talking about how to there's this concept called buyer safety, which is basically helping the person you want to influence feel that they're safer with you than without you, or safer with your solution than without you. So that's interesting. But one of the things that came out of that was you've got to understand the personal gain element as well. So what's in it for that person you're trying to influence, that board or that MD or that CEO or whatever. What really matters to them, what's gonna either keep them up at night, or what's gonna make them go home very happy at the end of the week. And try to, if you can understand that, and then you can figure out a way of enabling and empowering them to achieve that. And that's kind of a really important facet of this as well, I think.
But we are at a moment in time, and if you asked me how I feel about being president, is that I've been doing this job for a long time, and I've seen things come and go in different waves, and I do feel we're in a moment in time, and we need to adapt as a profession and learn from what we've encountered, and not slip back into our old ways, because that's incredibly easy to do. So we've all got to work together to work forward. And we only have a relatively short period of time to transform how we're working, and I feel very conscious of that as president. And I guess that's one of the things that I do think about in the back of my mind is how can I, that's why I'm keeping myself out there and talking about this stuff, is that it is a moment in time.
Yeah, fully agree with you there. Talk to me about Catch the Wave.
So Catch the Wave is absolutely aligned to all of these concepts. So it's about looking at sustainability in its broadest sense. So I think anybody who runs business understands what sustainability means in its broadest sense. So it's not just about the environment, it's about having a long-term view on our organizations, on our people, on our communities, and balancing people, planet, and profit. So, and again, I think we do understand this, but it's just articulating it in a slightly different narrative and building health and safety into this and saying, well, actually, if we look at this from a people perspective and look after our people, they're going to help us to solve our most complex issues.
Yep.
And it's not saying that I don't believe that health and safety is our number one priority. It's about creating balance with all of these things. So if we just focus on finance and profits, our people suffer.
Yeah.
If we focus on the environment, we only have a finite resource to do that, and we need to focus on our people to create an environment of psychological trust and support where they feel that, you know, when they go to work, they feel safe.
Yeah.
They know that their health is not going to be compromised by poor standards, by being exposed to chemicals and environments that they shouldn't be exposed to. So the whole catch the wave narrative is around transforming the way that we articulate this to say we can bring value but to your organization by using our skills to create that balance and help make your organization more profitable. We also talk within the campaign about the UN Social Sustainability Goals as well.
Yeah.
So within there are 17 goals, and is it 161 there's 17 targets and 160 odd goals within it.
Yeah.
And within IOSH, we've identified something like 40 odd of those directly relate to health and safety. So we know that organisations are signing up to this because let's face it, we can't carry on like we are.
No.
You know, and unless we can create that balance, that sustainable balance, we're going to continue to become more and more unstable. So we've got to start, we've got to start building infrastructures. We've got to start caring about our people wherever they are. And this goes across supply chains. Or we're going to become more and more unstable.
Yeah.
So it's a real catch the wave is all about a call to action to organizations to look at the way they lead in a different way and to embrace these, modern health and safety leaders that, we're supporting within IOSH.
I'm a big fan of the 17 goals. I think if you look at how it was conceived, the idea, these are the 17 pressing issues that we need to solve as a species and as a planet, and therefore, if you can align yourself to any of those and make a positive impact, that should enable really powerful conversations with colleagues, boards, other stakeholders, colleagues, everything, because we should all be pulling in the same direction towards ticking the boxes on as many of those goals as possible. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think with organizations want to be environmentally sound, and but actually the UN sustainability goals cover so much more than just the environment.
Yeah.
And so that's where we need to almost hijack some of that language, I think, and that approach that we've seen, because let's face it, we still get a lot of negativity around what we do. And again, we're in this moment in time where we've got an opportunity to switch that, and I guess that's my responsibility for my year, is talking about it and saying, we've got to be that forward-looking force for good.
Yeah. So some advice I got for the goals, which might be interesting, is find one for the head and one for the heart. So in other words, whatever your company you work for does, figure out which of those goals aligns best to the company. So that's one for the head. And then figure out one that you have a real personal attachment to, whether it's, my sister-in-law, for example, is passionate about diving. So for her, it would be, I can't remember the number, but there's one all about life underwater, isn't there?
Yeah.
Maybe number 6 or something. I can't remember now. And if you can work at the intersection of two of those goals, going back to what we were talking about before about purpose, wow, that is really powerful, because that is giving you that massive purpose.
And actually, something that's come out of the work that I've been doing in council as well is that we've got loads to do in council. So it's somebody said to me in council, also don't try to boil the ocean, which goes with Catch the Wave. So again, I think a habit that we can get into is walking around and going, you've got all of these different things wrong, and I'm going to give you a massive, great, big, long list. But if we're going to be forward thinkers and facilitators, it's about not boiling the ocean and crawling before you can walk, before you can run, before you can fly, and having that kind of roadmap and just picking out a few goals to start off with, and not boiling the ocean.
No, that's definitely solid advice. I'm conscious of time, Louise, so before we sort of wrap up, how can people get involved with Catch the Wave or any of your other themes, and any particular events or anything like that coming up? And then I'm sure that most people in the audience would be fully aware of IOSH, but just give us how can people get involved in IOSH as well?
Yeah, so firstly is go and have a look at the website, which is iosh.com, and there's a whole page on Catch the Wave campaign. We've got white papers, we've got lots of free resources and materials. There's also the IOSH YouTube page with some great webinars, and I've been hosting a lot of the webinars, which I know you've been coming to, Christian.
Yeah, I
saw you in the audience last time.
Yeah.
So so the webinars have been really fantastic. So there's loads of free resources on there. Something we are looking for actually is we're looking for case studies. So if people are using those resources and feel that they've got a case study or something to say, then follow the links on the website, and we really want to hear about your case studies. So that's a really great way to get involved. Do get involved with the way to get the best out of IOSH is to get involved with this community of people. And again, we've had a really sharp uptake in our members over the last 18 months. And I think that's been driven by members being this amazingly positive community. So check out your local branches. We are starting to get out and about, which is really fantastic. I went out twice last week. So I was at the Health and Wellbeing Expo in Birmingham and bumped into some people, and actually that's massively valuable. So you will see that local branches are definitely starting to open up now. So you are nobody's alone in all of this, and I hope that we will continue to build that network of supported people, because together we can change the world, and it just starts with one conversation at a time.
There you go. How's that for a way to finish a podcast? You can't get any more upbeat and impactful than that. So thanks very much, Louise. Really appreciate it. Love what you're doing. Keep it up. Another few months of hard work, hard push, and then perhaps have a break in December.
In November. So I'll be handing over to Lawrence and supporting Lawrence in November. So
good stuff. All right, and so thanks very much, and thanks everybody joining us today in the audience as well. See you next week for another episode.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit follow and do share on social media. Does anyone you know spring to mind as a great guest, even yourself? If so, please contact us on podcast@slipsafety.co.uk. See you next week for another episode.